Hello ladies and gentlemen and movie lovers of all kind, and welcome back to the channel. As always, I am your host, Brett Murphy, and for today's video it is going to be another ranking. So as most of you who are watching likely know, today marked the release of the season 1 finale of Invincible on Amazon Prime. And you know what that means, another ranking of every single episode. And so without further ado, let's hop right into things. Number 8. Episode 4, Neil Armstrong, Eat Your Heart Out. This episode is still very much so worth watching. It definitely has its upsides and some very good moments. But for the most part, it sort of just feels like it's running in place. Nothing really happens, so it kind of falls short, feels a little lackluster, and like it doesn't really go anywhere. Just sort of like a filler episode, you know? Like it's not bad by any means, but it's just alright. The only really big things that happen is Mark goes to Mars with a group of astronauts and then they have to fight off these alien squid things that mind control people, which I felt was just sort of meh. However, Damien Darkblood does get exorcised and sent back to hell, but not before he leaves a clue for Debbie about Nolan. Robot's behavior gets progressively suspicious, and Nolan and Debbie have a little bit of bonding time with the trip around the world. Aside from that though, not really much happens. Number 7. Episode 2, Here Goes Nothing. This episode is still a total blast. It just doesn't have as much going for it as some of the other episodes do. Nolan is in a coma after the events of the first episode. Mark goes out on his own and joins forces with another superhero team to try and take down an army of repeat alien invaders known as the Flaxons. And when I say repeat, I mean repeat. These guys show up like 3 or 4 times with better technology and more ways to take on the heroes each and every time, meaning it actually remains fairly interesting. The only other big bit of this episode is having the always hilarious Seth Rogen show up as a telepathic extraterrestrial Cyclops who mistakenly comes to Earth instead of Urath. Number 6, Episode 3, Who You Calling Ugly. This episode opens up on the very somber note of both of the Guardians of the Globe's funerals. The huge televised one and the more small-scale personal one of those who knew them as friends. But knowing what we know from the first episode, Nolan's heartfelt speeches feel hollow. From there we see that Damien Darkblood has grown even more suspicious of Nolan, as has Cecil, as he has Donald establish a surveillance operation across the street from the Graysons. Mark and Amber's relationship blossoms as Eve and Rexplodes becomes strained. Though it's not all melodramatic here, as we see Mark and Eve team up to save Mount Rushmore, and Robot is appointed the new leader of the new Guardians of the Globe, and we see the tryouts, which are very entertaining. Especially seeing Rexplode absolutely get his ass kicked for being an asshole. And then the episode finishes off with the Muller twins finally escaping. Number 5, Episode 1, It's About Time. All in all, this starts off as a pretty generic pilot episode. This kid's dad is a superhero, he finally gets his powers and begins training, learns a few life lessons along the way, nothing really special. And then holy shit, that ending. That might be one of the biggest, most dark and twisted shock endings I have ever seen in my entire life. It completely flips the entire show on its head and changes everything you just saw. And I really can't remember the last 5 to 10 minutes of a show or movie or anything for that matter. Shook me that much to my core and completely caught me off guard. Number 4, Episode 6, You Kinda Look Dead. This episode opens up with a character voiced by Justin Roiland, aka Rick Sanchez, and the co-creator of Rick and Morty. So basically you're laughing right off the hop. From there though, it delves into both the straining of Mark and Amber's relationship, as well as Mark coming to terms with what being a superhero may mean for his personal life. The real fun here though is the sick and twisted underground experiments that one student is performing on the men that he kidnaps, turning them into mindless, powerful, animalistic human-machine hybrids, which he in his own eyes believes is the next evolution for humanity. And to top it all off, Debbie finally finds out once and for all what happened on that night when Nolan was with the Guardians of the Globe. Number 3, Episode 5, That Actually Hurt. This one was definitely a candidate for the best episode. Because until those final 2 episodes, it was by far my favorite. I mean like leaps and bounds above the rest. I mean, Mahershala Ali stars in it, so you should know right then and there that essentially automatically elevates it above the rest. The dude is just fantastic in everything that he's in, even if what he's in is absolute garbage. He's just that good. And I love his character in this, how they portray him and where he ends up. Not to mention, I thought Machine Head was great. That dude was so snarky and hilarious. But what this episode really delivers on is the moral dilemma on if Mark should help Titan or not, as the dude is sort of a villain. But then, of course, the extremely hard-hitting action. And when I say hard-hitting, I mean hard-hitting. With the unbelievably brutal throwdown between Mark, Titan, the new Guardians of the Globe, and a newly introduced group of baddies. Number 2, Episode 7, We Need to Talk. Now, a lot finally gets revealed and put into play in this penultimate episode. Robot's plan is finally revealed, Mark seeks advice from Eve, who is now off on her own journey saving the world, Immortal is brought back to life and he is pissed off and seeking vengeance, and just about everything else comes crashing down for everyone else. Cecil throws everything he's got up his sleeve at Omni-Man, trying to stop him from reaching them. Meanwhile, Debbie looks on in both horror and disbelief. And we finally get to see Mark and Nolan team up as they take down a massive kaiju. But then the episode ends with Nolan actually ripping Immortal apart right in front of Mark's eyes. And then it ends with that line, "We need to talk." And coming in at number 1 is Episode 8, Where I Really Come From. Brutal, relentless, and packed with moments that cut oh so deep and truly tug on the heartstrings. Often this episode is very hard to watch for all of those reasons. Watching Nolan beat Mark, his own son, to near death because he refuses to let the humans die after his true nature is revealed, and what Nolan's plan was all along. I mean, seriously, the things he says, this dude is a villain. And honestly, quite irredeemable at this point after everything that he puts Mark and the civilians through. And man, poor Debbie. Having to just sit there and hear all of that. The episode feels like it goes by in a breeze. It's, I think, about 45 minutes, but the first 30 or so is just the throwdown between Nolan and Mark. And the way they portray the civilians being absolutely slaughtered is honestly the way that most superhero movies would look if they were able to show all of that stuff. Yeah, I'm looking at you, any Marvel or any DC movie. But in the end, seeing Nolan fly away and those tears streaming down his face and lingering in space really just left me wanting to see more. So thank God it got renewed in the same day for seasons 2 and 3. I mean, we get that awesome montage setting up for future seasons as well as seeing where everyone ends up. Oh yeah, and then again, having Seth Rogen come back at the end of this episode was once again hilarious. So that is all for today's video, folks. Be sure to let me know down in the comments if you agree or disagree with my ranking. And be sure to let me know down in the comments what your thoughts were on season 1 of Invincible. If you enjoyed that video, be sure to hit that thumbs up button. And if you'd like to see more content, consider subscribing to my channel and ringing that little bell icon. That way you can be notified about all of my latest uploads. And as always, stay safe. Thank you so much for watching. And that's a wrap. Hey you, yeah you, if you made it this far, just know I appreciate you. And while you're here, consider hitting that subscribe button.